hooked me up with my beats.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, he got you some music.
Well, yeah, I forgot my Beats earphones here yesterday. I was terrified. I was
Beats,
like,
beats,
man, someone gonna
beats.
check them. But no,
I
he got
feel
them
you,
for me. Shout out to Ryan.
bro. I feel like I need to call on the Cade Crusader. I really do. I really do. But we'll wait. We'll wait. I know we're getting there. It's our latest Pistons trends. Look who I found, Mr. Jeff Iafrate,
What it
Mr.
do?
Everything, as Rod Beard calls him, Mr. Hollywood now,
Man, dude, I miss Rod. I miss talking to Rod.
huh?
There's some stories I'll tell Rod, and I know he'd flip it into a Hollywood joke. So I gotta watch here. But like for example, this morning, shout out to Birmingham Roast because I get I get a Red Bull occasionally. Sometimes I like Red Bull, so I'll
Yeah.
get one from Birmingham, and they'll put it.
It comes by drone for Jeff.
No, no, it's funny. It's funny. Shout out to everybody in there because they'll give me a cup with ice in it.
Yeah.
And I'll put the Red Bull in the cup of ice. And I swear to God, if I told Rod that, you know what he'd say? He'd say, "Of course they do. Of course they get you a cup.
I'm not gonna
Of course they
tell
get you a
him.
cup with ice with Red Bull in it."
I'm not gonna
I'm
tell him.
like,
I'm gonna wait for you to be
damn,
able to
Rod.
tell him that story, dog.
Oh,
He's
dude,
gonna love it too.
he's gonna shred me. Shout out to Rod, man.
But-
He's awesome.
But I need you though, man,
He's the best.
because I do need to hear that story later. But you were at that game. You were at the Clippers game, and it's generally when I'm going to these games, I'm like, yo, some of our crew's there, some of them is not. When you guys aren't there, it's like, I wonder what you're feeling, what you're seeing from that side. But you were in the arena.
Yeah.
You got to tell your story. You got to tell the people exactly what was going on from your perspective, man, before we get into, hey, we got to talk about a little bit of the blame on that game because the microcosm of the whole season as well in terms of some things that we've seen. And then we're going to get into the effects of Cade Cunningham and losing him and what that looks like. We talked about it with Rod, but
Yep.
You got to get into it, bro.
So I'll give you my perspective. So shout out to Booner, by the way. He was unable to go to the game. He's got season tickets, and he hit me up. He's like, "Jeff, you want to go to the Clippers game tonight?" I'm like, yeah, heck yeah. So me and my boy go down there. My buddy Jake loves basketball. Me and him have been going to a couple games this season. He actually was there when you met him, so he was on Woodward Pistons. But anyway, we go to the game. We're watching the game, and it was actually a great showing. LCA was packed there to my surprise. I know it was after Christmas, but still for one of the worst teams, and LA isn't a huge fan draw, but still a lot of people were in attendance. I like the environment. And then you watch the first quarter. The Pistons played a great half. They played a great third quarter. After being down double digits, they clawed back. The crowd's in it. You get to see Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren have good games, especially Killian in the first quarter. By the way, looked like the second coming of James Harden. But watching all of that, I was enjoying myself. And then you get to the fourth quarter, and defensively, it's kind of been the same as all year, but still they compete. They take a 14-point lead with 3 minutes left. And funny story. So I don't know if I can take blame for this, and I will regardless. So it's about 4 minutes left in the game. We're getting closer to the 3-minute mark where they threw the lead, and Tyronn Lue pretty much cashes it in, takes out the starters. Says, "All right, guys, pack up. We're going to Toronto tomorrow. We'll just get this one in the bag. It's a loss. Pistons won this one. We'll put in our second unit." So I look at my buddy. I go, "You know what? Let's beat traffic. Pistons have a comfortable lead. Let's scoot out of here and just avoid the chaos when everybody leaves LCA." So we leave. We get in my car. I'm driving away. I'm on the highway. About 20 minutes pass, and I want to check ESPN. I want to check the box score.
Hold on. Bro, when you eventually saw that box score, I need like seriously, because you left like, yo, they won. It's over.
Yeah.
Like I was in the middle of an important text. I was like, you know what, hold on. What was it? What happened when you saw that this team lost? What was your very first reaction?
Nothing. I was silent. I didn't know what to tell my friend who just enjoyed himself at a Pistons game. I looked at him. I go, so the Pistons lost in overtime. And my first shock was it was in overtime. And then the second shock was they didn't even compete in overtime. They scored 3 points and they lost. But it was a lot. I had to sit there and I kind of laughed about it. But at the same time, I'm like, I just can't catch a break, man. Should I have stayed? All these thoughts are going through my mind. Did I jinx them by leaving when they were up?
Bro,
it was terrible. It really was. I had to go back home when I got home. I rewatched the last 3 minutes just to see what I missed in overtime, just to kind of comprehend, or at least try to comprehend, how that lead was completely tossed away. But that was, and then I got, you know what made it worse too? Screw ESPN, by the way, because they hurt my feelings more. With the stat.
Please, man.
Teams are 2 and 12,880, whatever it was, in games when you're trailing by 14 points with 3 minutes left. Now they're 3 and 12,800 and whatever it was. So the Pistons made history, but they weren't on the good side of history.
Not at all.
They were on the bad side.
Not at all.
It was a complete meltdown. You could probably argue, Brandon, that was the lowest point of the season. It really was. Because they were so close. And the fact that Isaiah Stewart came out after the game, and I loved his quote, talking about this. This isn't on the coaches. This is on us. I mean, we're out there.
They just didn't execute.
They didn't execute. And if people want to target Dwane Casey, whatever, that's your narrative. For me, I look at the position Dwane helped these guys get into, which is a 14-point lead with 3 minutes left. Like, what can you ask of him? I mean, you're up 14 with 3 minutes left. You got to close the game. I mean, Dwane isn't out there making shots, missing shots, and playing defense. They
missing free throws,
missing free throws, which were huge. The fact that Paul George, I think he got in with 30 seconds left. Like, he was not even in the game when the comeback happened. It was a disaster. But that, I agree with Isaiah Stewart. I don't think people would say, well, he's just saying that to protect Dwane. No, he's not. He's honest, and I agree with him. That's on the players.
That's not the type of guy Beef Stew is. You know, when he speaks, if you think he's the type of guy that would just lie to you, just to lie to you on that front, it's just like, bro, we can see through you. He has not presented himself like that. Other people, I think, are more savvy with what they say. Yeah, I think Coach Casey was very savvy with what he said when he said it's on all of us. The reality is this team is learning. Do I believe that there are some things he could potentially do to maybe put this team in an even better position? Yeah, but at that time, I feel like we're parsing and pulling hairs and things of that nature. Like, in the reality, if you remove Casey from this squad, what exactly do you add to it? I feel like if we trust in Troy and we trust that Troy knows what this squad is about, what the squad should be producing, and exactly what they're trying to do. You know, Rod and I talked about it being a development year. Then you put this squad in position to see exactly what you have. And you know what we need to know? If losing Cade, and we'll get to there, has affected this team in certain regards, or, you know, to the point that they, in close games, aren't finding a way to pull them out.
Right.
When you look last year in that 10 and 14 stretch after All-Star, Cade Cunningham and his fourth quarter heroics was a big part of why they won. So the next step in development is, how do we augment this team with players that can do that? And you have to figure that out. Can Killian do it? Can Bojan be that? Because if not, guess what you need next year? Another guy who can do that. And they're going to have the cap space and the draft capital and things to do that. So it sucks to know, all right, this has turned into a development year when this initially with Cade Cunningham was supposed to be a year to see this team go out there and battle. The team said it, be competitive every night. The team said it, they want to be able to compete for a play-in. And then they start the season not just without Cade, but injuries to the bigs, mismanaged rotations and things of that nature because Bojan was dropped in Casey's lap. Boom, right before the season. Stretch 4, Stu, that messes things up a little bit too, and then all the injuries. So it's just like, there's a lot. I do believe, you know, that there is something to, you know, Casey, and I want to ask you first, I guess. You know, I've talked about it as well. Some of the rotations, timeouts, and when they're called or not. Some of the defensive schemes, you know, putting your players in a best position to succeed. You know, these are some of the things that if I was going to have any criticism from game to game, especially in that Dallas game, that's one of the criticisms I would have. I don't believe that is the top 3 issues, but I believe it's something that definitely hampered this team. And I wanted to get your opinion on it as well as we talk Dwane Casey.
The question, I think, and this is for Troy, obviously, he's making these decisions. Do you feel like Dwane is holding this team back that much to where you make a decision like that midseason? I would argue no. That's the question I would have for fans. You're looking at it. If you fire Dwane right now, where does this team go from there? Number one, I don't think, at least is my opinion, for a young team to have inconsistency at the coaching position, like keep Dwane for the whole season. It doesn't matter at this point. You're tanking for a draft pick. I think there are legitimate criticisms people have of Dwane, and that's fine. I think you can go and you can name criticisms for a lot of coaches in the NBA. But to say that he's the sole reason why this team isn't winning, I think is idiotic. I don't want to go as far as to say it's somebody that is very reactive and looking at the results and trying to find someone to blame, because as you know, it's much easier to replace a coach than a player. So if you can't fix issues, well, fire the coach. In this situation, that doesn't apply because we know Dwane is the second oldest coach in the NBA. We know he's not going to be coaching in the NBA much longer. So Troy's looking at it like Steve Yzerman looked at it with the Wings. the conversation, I know how many shows I did with Adam during the wing season last year, and people kept saying, fire Blashill, fire Blashill. Why isn't our Yzerman firing Blashill? Fire him right now.
That's a great point.
And D-Mac said up there, and this is why I respect D-Mac so much. He said, it's the wiser plan. It's his plan. When he will fire Jeff Blashill when he feels like it's
dropping heat.
Absolutely necessary. And what happened that summer? He got rid of Blashill. And now you have Derek Alone. You see anybody talking about Derek Alone? No. No one's talking about Blashill. It's over. So, again, I don't blame fans for being reactive. They're passionate. They care about their team. That's fine. So saying fire Blashill, I'm not going to hate you for that. But the big picture is, if Troy Weaver's that dude, which we think he is, when there's a time and a place where he feels like this team is ready to compete and he feels like Dwane's holding them back, he's going to make a decision. I think, and we all agree here, that Dwane will probably transition into a different role this offseason. I would be shocked if he comes back next year. But to say fire him right now, for what? I mean, you don't have Cade. You're relying on – you have 2 rookies starting in the starting lineup, a 19-year-old and a 20-year-old. This team has to learn how, absolutely. And this team has to learn how to win. They do. And defensively, they are terrible. I understand. But we knew that. I mean, we said the loss of Jeremy Grant, it would affect them more on the defensive side. What is it doing? They're terrible defensively. This is my point. So again, moving forward, it doesn't change how I feel about the rebuild. I think the future is extremely bright. This roster is very incomplete. There's a lot of moves that need to be made with free agency, drafts. You never know when to trade. With Troy Weaver, you can make a trade any given day. So again, I'm not down on the Pistons and their future. And even with Dwane, I think Dwane's doing a good job developing players. He's the one who trusted Killian. Like, people, if you left that decision to start Killian to the fans, they would have never started him. Because of how he was playing before.
What if Stan Van Gundy was the person in charge of Killian Hayes?
Oh, he would have been done.
That's what I'm talking about.
DMPs.
That's what I'm talking about, bro.
Dwane gives him the trust, starts him, says, you know what? Let's go. And Killian's playing extremely well. But no one will give credit for him for that. Nobody will give credit for him finally, or really easing Jalen Duren along this season and then starting him and Isaiah Stewart in the front court. It's for Dwane, the criticism, I just don't think it's necessary right now. Wait, there's clearly, and that's why I'm not panicking. I know there's going to be a move that's made. It's not now. That's my point. It's not right now. You're not going to fire Dwane right now. Troy will find his guy and bring him in when he feels necessary. And Troy, to me, has earned that trust. I trust Troy to make that decision. And until otherwise, I'm going to keep the same feelings I have right now, which is Dwane holding this team back that much? And right now, no. Yep. If they had expectations to go to the playoffs and they were at this record, of course. But their expectations with Cade was, what was the over-under? 27 wins? 28 wins? And we said over with Cade. He's not here. And honestly, how it was trending with Cade.
That was at best.
That was at best. I said 30 at best. I said 30 at best. I didn't think they'd make the play-in. If they get 20-something wins, I'll say they get 21 wins. They're 9 wins less without Cade. Yeah, sounds about right. Just because of the stat you brought up with how important he was late in games. It's and Jaden Ivey adjusting to being that dude, Killian Hayes adjusting to being that dude now. It's Duren now there's so many things that are so many moving parts for the Pistons. I just don't think all taking it all and saying it's Dwane's fault is just unrealistic to me.
Isaiah Stewart learning how to play stretch 4.
Yeah, playing and shooting the ball well this year.
That's where I was gonna go, because these are the things. It's like, okay, I don't have a problem leveling, and I want people to put in the comments what role and what blame do you put on Dwane Casey? What is it that you believe he should be doing differently? Because I honestly want to parse this. I want to be able to get into it in later Pistons Trends.
And again, there's legitimate criticisms you can have with Dwane. That's fine. You can criticize, but to say fire him right now,
what's the point and the purpose of firing right now? What do you do right now? And do you ignore all of the signs of development? Like Isaiah Stewart right now in the year. His overall numbers at 11.7 points, 8 rebounds, 1.2 assists. Some people said don't write home about that. With what you know about Isaiah Stewart, his development and such, and that he's making a change or a switch, that's where things become very, very interesting, especially at 3-point numbers. On the year, he's shooting 47%, but how many field goal attempts per game is he getting? Only 8.4. He's making 4 of those a game. 3-pointers, man, 38% on the year, 4.1 3-point attempts. It's not like he's just shooting them every now and then. I may make one game, may miss an extra. 1.6 makes a game, 4.1 attempts.
4 attempts a game. My prediction for Isaiah Stewart was, 30%. He's shooting 38. I mean, that's impressive. And again, that's not all Dwane. Obviously, Isaiah Stewart's worked on his craft, but trusting him and allowing him to be like, you know what, Isaiah, you could play the four.
Game plan, the how you drawing up the plays and all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So nobody will talk about that though. I mean, well, that's all Isaiah Stewart's credit. He didn't, Dwane didn't develop him. It's like, when are we picking and choosing between giving credit? Because if a player regresses, well, that's Dwane's fault. But if a player improves, well, that's the player. He worked on his game. Where's the line? That's what I'm asking, because I've had this conversation with people multiple times, and I don't understand it.
Yep, and that's why I want them to do it. Put it in the comments. Let us know what you think we may be missing, because there are things to criticize the lineups and all that. And I have a theory on why I think it looks the way that it does. And we'll move there now. Dwane Casey was brought here to win. He was brought here to win now. He was not brought here as a part of the rebuild. And honestly, when Troy Weaver got here, the rebuild didn't start until Blake Griffin was gone.
Right.
Not until Blake Griffin's gone and Cade Cunningham is drafted did the rebuild start. That was just when? Last season. Dwane Casey was brought here to win. He had a squad that was decent enough. They went to the playoffs, one time under SVG, one time under Dwane?
Yeah, that was the year for Dwane. They won like 40 games.
Yeah, and so he proved. You put just a little bit. Would anybody write home and say that team was a good team? Right. You gave them a little bit of talent. They made the 8th seed.
And Blake had a career year that year.
Yeah, a career year that year. They made the 8th seed. They didn't know what to do with Killian Hayes. Seeing the growth in Casey and how he's dealing with the young players just from that year to this year is night and day. But he on the fly has had to go into rebuild mode. Now, if I'm a coach that's always been associated with teams that are ready to win now, teams with veteran players, teams who I don't have to coax and coach 6, 7, 8 draft picks over the last 3 years, he's been a pretty decent coach.
Yeah.
There's things we can criticize, definitely. But so when I see him do things like, okay, he doesn't call the timeout at the 3-minute mark. He, to make sure when his team is losing that lead that he gets them settled. He waits until it's a 4 or 5 point lead when he calls the timeout. That's something that we used to see Larry Brown do with the old Detroit Pistons. When they were good, though, because you let that team go, and they would talk about it. There were games where they didn't call that timeout, and people would interview. Hey, why didn't they call the timeout? We get it. That team was great. That team was ready for it. But maybe it is a mindset thing. You see people all the time talk about Casey being the type of coach who he has an archaic style of thinking. And I don't think it's old or archaic. I think it's a style that is usually reserved for winning teams.
Right.
And that's the case. You don't call a timeout. You let those stars and those guys figure it out on the court and go out there and prove themselves. And in a year of development, you see what you have in that. Because if it was Cade Cunningham out there in that Clippers game, I don't believe that they go down that way.
No, they don't. And
Atlanta Hawks game either.
And another thing that Dwane's kind of dealing with, and this is kind of why I do feel bad for him in a way, because you look at some of the situations, like, for example, the Pistons, they went to OT against the Clippers. And people have told me, why didn't he play Ivey more in OT and this and that? And you've heard this conversation. Why are you playing Corey Joseph late in games, whatever? There's this push and pull for Dwane this season between, do I go with my younger players down the stretch and risk losing a game? Or do I get guys I trust and try to win a game? But here's the difference. If you lose with the guys you trust, then people criticize you. Why didn't you go to the young guys? But if you play Jaden Ivey and you go to the young guys and you lose, this guy can't coach. He's not winning games. So it's Dwane, he has a tough task. He has a tough job. He does. And his job for me was always player development. And I've been happy with the players I've seen so far. So it doesn't really go much beyond that. I mean, the rotations, yeah, you can criticize all that. They're not in a position to contend this year. So I don't really care about any of those things. Now, are players getting better, and do they look good? Ivey had a stretch where he was struggling. He's looked better. So that's kind of what Dwane's dealing with. And my heart kind of goes out to him in that way, because it's like, what do you do in those situations? Do you play Burks because you trust him? Or do you play Killian Hayes to give him a shot? Or excuse me, Jaden Ivey to give him a shot, but then you risk losing a game? Or do you try and win with your veterans? Like, it's this push and pull between tanking or winning. And it's a tough job for any head coach.
Yep. And I went over that with Rod this morning, the Jaden Ivey thing. And I want people to really, really, really keenly pay attention, because have you seen what the last 5 to 10 games looks like between the two of them? I'm sorry. There's not a comparison between Jaden Ivey and Benedict Mathurin. It's just not. I pulled the stats, man. I pull them up too, because I know that you might not know them right now. Mm-hmm. And I just want you to be able to talk knowing them. Because I did this last week, especially on the Believe Network. I did a breakdown of the two guys. And people are like, that's just their trend. Let's see where they go from there. Well, then the next 5 games after that, well, let's check it out. Jaden Ivey's last 5 games, bro. 19.4 points per game. Just under 20.
And he had a 30 burger in that stretch.
3.8 assists per game, 3.2 rebounds per game. He's shooting from 3 over the last 5 games. What do you think he's shooting from 3?
39.
50%.
Oh my God. Damn.
What'd you think he hit from the field, bro?
Man, I'll say 50.
48.5.
Okay, because if you're shooting 50 from 3. Now, how many attempts are up from 3?
The attempts, 3 attempts per game.
That's pretty good. That's
1.4 makes per game on, yeah.
He's about 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Like, what about Benedict Mathurin? I know
pull those up.
Because that was a big thing too. I've always said I think Jaden Ivey just offers more in his game than Ben. Like he has he can do much more.
Don't go look at the advanced metrics on their defenses. Jaden Ivey is just an all-around better defensive player. Now, I said this. People was talking about the scoring. Oh man, he's scoring getting a 25, getting a 27. I was looking at the box score like there's a lot of 1s and 0s throughout the rest of it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I like Benedict Mathurin. I think the Pistons need a player like him next year. Now that you have a Cade, an Ivey, a Killian,
right?
You need that absolute. Right. I don't care what else you do. Just go out there and get buckets. The problem is what happens when those players can't do that. The last 5 games for Benedict Mathurin. You ready? 12 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, 1 assist per game. The shooting, what do you think his 3-point percentage is?
30.
18.8.
Oh my. Damn. What you got to at least tell me if you're shooting that bad, you got to be playing pretty good defense. What's he giving me?
3.2 attempts per game.
Give me the steals and blocks. What's he get? Let's
get the steals.
Because I need some. I want to show. They better be good defensively if you're struggling like that.
Blocks per game, 0.2. Okay, steals per game, 0.4.
So he ain't doing shit. So there you go.
He's not doing anything.
And again, it's not a shot at Ben, but it shows that with Ivey, the difference has always been how versatile Ivey is. His game is
1.2 steals per game for Ivey.
Ivey can play. He's a good defender. He can pass the ball. He can rebound. Now he's shooting better. So the only thing Ben could do early on in the season better than Ivey was score the basketball. But I've always said Ivey can do so much more. That's why I value a guy like that, because
ceiling where his potential could go.
Absolutely.
He doesn't
he leaves his imprint on the game in so many different ways, like unlike Ben.
Yep. Without the offensive polish of Ben Mathurin, we all stated during our pre-draft, in our draft coverage and everything, that what Ivey possesses and what he brings to the game is exactly what we've seen here. So whether he can score or not, we all knew Ivey's going to be the guy who can get you a raw 12 to 15 points per game just off of free throws. That's the other stat I wanted to bring up, because people said, Ivey can't get to the free throw line. But off of free throws, he's been averaging 7 attempts per game over the last 5 games.
Imagine if Cade could get that his rookie year.
That's what I said. Right. That's what I said. But we stated Ivey's going to fall into 12 to 15 points per game. Yeah. And then with the rebounds and the assists, we wanted to see playmaking. When I wanted to criticize that, you said, was he asked to playmake?
Right.
We looked at him and was like, no.
Or was he asked? People brought up his defensively. What he was defensively. Like, was he asked?
Was he asked to defend?
Yeah.
That's what I got to pull up, man. Take it away. I'm gonna bring up the defensive metrics as
because
well.
We talked about that before the draft. It's like with Ivey, he was the dude at Purdue. Now, how much of an offensive burden he had? The question was, does that take away a little bit of what he could do defensively? And I thought so, because obviously at the next level, it's different. Guys are playing in college. You're just trying to get to the next level. You're taking plays off. In the NBA, you can't take plays off. Like you're going to get exposed. So for Ivey, you're seeing all the stuff that people criticize him in college for kind of evaporate, like defensively. I thought even before, remember Troy Weaver sat him down. I challenge you to be a great defender because you have a 6'10" wingspan and you're 6'4". Like he has all the tools. So far, it's playing out that way. He's been, should we give Dwane credit for that too, or no? I mean, how well he's been defensively. He's improved defensively as well. And with his athleticism, there's no question he can't be a great defender. So yeah, that was always my biggest thing. I was excited. That was one of the things I talked to you about early in the pod, is I can't wait to see what he is as a defender. I couldn't wait.
Yep. And it's interesting because this is what drew me to more or less the Dwayne Wade comparisons, that he was a big body. He could defend multiple positions, and I'm starting to see him do that more.
The wingspan as well. Dwayne has a huge wingspan.
The way that he plays offense in the half court, it's different. he doesn't have to be as shifty as John Morant. He's literally in a position to where one twitch and then off to the right, one twitch to the left, off to the right. He's wide open, bro. Wide open. Now he's getting himself into some trouble every now and then. Errant turnover here and there.
The shot selection,
bad shot selection
that's
every now and then.
Rookie stuff you're seeing.
But bro, we thought it was gonna be worse. We thought, okay, his shot selection in the mid range. When he gets to that mid range, he just gets there. Is he gonna be? No, he's not doing that. It's almost as if someone told him, "Hey, look, if you get into the mid range, pass or run through." Yeah. It seemed like just the way his game is now. As of late, since we've heard him talk about, "Hey, I'm working on this," we've seen him actually go out there.
You know what's funny too? When I was at the game on Monday, one thing I did see him do, to his credit, was take mid-range shots. I saw him take 2. I believe in the second quarter. He missed them, but still, the fact that he pulled up from mid-range, I was so proud. I'm like, the fact that he's attempting these, man, because with that athleticism, John Morant does this very well. With how athletic he is, if he's coming full speed at you and you're at the rim or you're defending him, you have no choice but to back up, backpedal. And Ja does this well, where he has a floater. He doesn't have a mid-range shot, but he can do things from mid-range that can still be dangerous. Jaden Ivey, like you said, it's either to the rack or I'm taking a 3. If he can add a floater or a mid-range shot, think about how dangerous, because now the defender is going to be guessing at all times. And what's this guy going to do? You're backing up. He's more athletic than you. You can't give him a step, but he also has a mid-range shot or a floater he can hit you with, or he can shoot from 3. Like, he's going to be eventually, I think he'll be a good 3-level scorer. But if he adds that in his game, man, how dangerous he's going to be. Getting to the line as often as he does, it's scary.
Bro,
makes me excited for his future.
I'm just like, hey, you saying a word. And we have here, look, the rates, the steal rates, the block rates, and all that. You know, Ivy is effectively doubled up over the block rate, the steals rate, over Benedict Mathurin. Assist rate, 8% for Benedict Mathurin, 20.8% for Jaden Ivey, bro. Like, even the rebound rate. Let me see here with the rebound rate. The defensive rebounding rate, 10.8% for Benedict Mathurin, 11.5% for Jaden Ivey. Like, that's wild. Everything as it relates to the defensive side of the ball, and we can keep going down to all the stats.
Right.
Jaden Ivey is outperforming Benedict Mathurin. And as it relates to scoring over the last 10 games, he's outperforming Benedict Mathurin. You know, and it's just, these are the things. That's why we talk about Pistons trends. We want to be able to come on here and be able to get into seeing beyond what the wins and losses might be making people feel, and actually look at what's going on. Because if there are things that can take away from this season going into next season, like the development of these young players, we got to talk about it. Can't get lost in a bevy of fire. Casey, I ain't got no problem leveling with people in terms of, hey, is he the long-term solution for the squad? Right now, it's not looking like it in terms of winning, but he's always been a win-now coach. He is the type of guy who has, he gives that type of instillment and that type of faith. Now, is he a finishing coach? Yes. He might not be like the Flip Saunders.
Right.
He might not be the Rick Carlisle. He might not be those guys. He might be like a Larry Brown at this point in his career. Not necessarily apt to be in for long rebuilds, not necessarily apt to be in a transition, because next year, though we said it should be better, next year is going to be growing pains. It's not even going to be like this year where it's growing pains with the development. We're talking about probably seeing this team lose more games like the Clippers games last year. That's the growing pains, where you see this team is good enough, and then down the stretch, some things might come apart. Right. That's what I actually expect to see more of the team if they have losses like that next year. But I expect them to be tremendously more competitive, more complete. And honestly, if I had to break it down, I guess before we kind of shut this part down, you know, we talked about Cade. We talked about the effect of losing him. You know, 106 points in the clutch. 63 was the next closest person last year as a rookie. That's wild to me.
Yeah, that's unheard of.
He would help against the Clippers, bro. But I want to end this one. I want you guys to put in the comments too. How do you break down the percentage of blame? For me, and I'm gonna explain. If there's a pie chart, 50% of the blame right now is on Troy Weaver. That's not saying that Troy Weaver is the person that should be fired. I think he's doing a tremendous job. But by blame, I mean the responsibility. It's going to be on him to assess, which is what he should be doing. Where we blame him, where we say it's your fault that this team isn't, is what happens next season. Is this roster tremendously improved from and on a better trajectory than it was last year, and the year before, and then the year before that?
Right.
Then we got to say he's doing the right things. But 50% of the responsibility or blame, however you want to put it, is going to fall on him. After that, this is where it gets interesting for me. I'm only putting 10% of the blame on Dwane Casey right now. The other 40% of this blame is going to fall at the feet of the players for me, man.
It's funny.
That's just or no, 50%. I'm sorry. It's going to fall on the players. What I said what? No, 50 Troy, 10 Casey, 40 players. That's my breakdown.
I'm gonna go 30% Troy, 20% Dwane, 50% players. Because I think Troy has, you're right, more of a responsibility. He's the chef in the kitchen, and Dwane, I don't think, it's because what's funny? People bring up the NBA. Man, these teams don't need a coach. Like you look at the Celtics, Ime Udoka gets fired, Joe Mazzulla gets promoted. They're the first in the East. But then when it comes to the Pistons, it's all coaching. And I get it's young players, you're different, superstar players, but still the fact that it's picking and choosing. I don't think Dwane Casey's the entire reason why this team stinks.
No.
He's you could criticize him, but yes, it's 50% players. We mutually agree there. I mean, it's a players run league. You got to have superstars, and these players aren't there yet. They're developing and they're getting better, but you don't have Cade. Cade was supposed to be that fringe all-star this year player for you. He's not there. So you have a bunch of guys that are kind of tweeners, like Jaden Ivey looks good, but he's not at that point yet. Killian looks good, but he's not at that point yet. Right. You have a promising rookie. So that's probably where I'd go with it is 30% Troy, 20% Dwane, and 50% of the players.
Yep. And as it relates to what it is, it's not even about like, oh, get him out of here. No, this is just about the responsibility. Like for me, my perspective is more or less who, like in terms of the players, I agree with Stu. Go out there and execute. Yeah. That Clippers game is on the players. Right. And you know what? Now they know it. Like Cade Cunningham after that first year. The quote that I think should epitomize this season, and I guess we can close on this. And I got one more stat that I'm going to read because I think that the minority voices might be the minority. But Cade said it coming into his second year. He's like, bro, I thought I knew what to do in my rookie year. Mm-hmm. I thought I worked out enough. I thought I did this. I thought I did that. And he stated, coming into my sophomore year, now I know what the grind is. Now I know what to do. You know who doesn't have that? Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. But we're depending on those guys to start. You know who still needs to develop that? Killian Hayes. But we're depending on him to start.
Right.
And Bojan Bogdanovic, who this has to be one of the most frustrating seasons he's played in a long time.
Absolutely.
In a long time, bro. So I do see that there's some times where he's pressing. But I will leave you with this, man. I will leave you with this. Where do you think the Pistons rank in terms of attendance? Because the fans said that they would support a rebuild even if it's losing. And I know that we deal with people who come into the comments and we deal with stuff because, hey, it's a pretty big platform for what we write.
Right.
From what you do, from what we do on this show, from what you do on Morning Woodward, from Half Court, all of it, man. Where would you say the Pistons are ranking?
I'd say top 5.
Not quite that high, but they are top 11. They're just outside the top 10. Just outside the top 10. It's the 76ers, the Mavericks, the Raptors, the Bulls, the Heat, the Cavaliers, the Knicks, the Celtics, the Nuggets, the Trailblazers, the Pistons, then the Lakers, Jazz, Warriors, Nets, Bucks, and so forth.
So they're higher than the Warriors.
The Warriors, the Bucks, the Nets, the Hawks, the Clippers, the Grizzlies, the
Suns, team that stinks,
the Magic.
Man.
For a team that stinks, I'm just sitting here. Their average per game is pretty up there. And you know what? I know what a lot of people want to say and try to say. Like, oh, they might be inflating the numbers. It might be corporate bias. Bro, I'm there every home game. I'm taking the pictures. I'm posting it. Fans are showing up.
Yeah, like I said, Monday it was packed.
Yep.
It was packed.
Yep.
Even at day after Christmas.
Packed. Absolutely packed. And I'm just sitting here looking at the rest of the numbers too. Bro, this is interesting. On the road, Pistons are still a top 20 team. They're still a top 20 draw on the road. That's interesting to me. Just something to leave with people.
Right.
Hey, get in here, man. Can we get Adam in here? You think we can get him in to say something? Get in here.
He's saying explicatives right now. He's saying some cuss
Adam
words.
Bay doing, ladies and gentlemen.
When isn't this man cussing? Man? I got to go deal with this man.
Well, look, man, we're going to send it out.
Yep.
I think that we covered a lot in this trends. Next week, I definitely want to get into some of people's direct complaints about Casey and really see, are these things that have followed him here? Or are they things that are more indicative of where the team is in their growth?
Right.
Troy Weaver believes that he needs to give Casey a full complement of roster before he can start a true assessment.
Right.
But it'd be fun, man. You know what? We'll do this drum roll for Rod. We'll definitely
legend.
Get it done. For Jeff Iafrate, Mr. Everything, I am Brandon Dent, Detroit Kool-Aid, and let's get that drum roll going. Hey, for the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard. We'll see you guys next time. Man, we got to get some more